gorilla, nature. Bro, let's go skate. Dude, E equals MC squared. Nerd for life. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Motivation with Darius. I am so excited. Here we are today, a blessed day. It is Sunday. The day that I'm recording this is Sunday, July 23rd. Actually, no, it's the 24th. Sunday, July 24th. So I am very excited today. We're going to be talking about a special subject. Specifically, the subject is called bloodlust. Now, for a lot of people, this might be, some of the things I'm going to let you know, some of the things that I'm going to say are going to be a little bit graphic. But, to get to the point of what you're trying to say, sometimes you just got to be graphic. You can't just, everything can't be, pixies and fairies and unicorns and so forth and so on. So without further ado, let's get straight into it, right? The definition of bloodlust is an uncontrollable desire to kill someone, right? And another definition is the desire for bloodshed. And that's from Merriam-Webster.com. The second one is a desire for bloodshed. Now, it's a form of it. This is the bloodlust, right? Is a form of addiction. It's having a deep-rooted desire for something, right? When we're talking as far as lust goes, right? Like, a lot of people have lust for many different things. They have a lust for like a deep-rooted desire for something, right? So, let me go into a story, right? A story about, I have two dogs. One's name is Anubis and the other's name is Cleopatra, right? So Anubis started, my dog Cleopatra, she went into heat, right? And Anubis, he likes to, go and lick her all over, smell, dogs, how dogs do, right? So he got a taste of, of whatever it is, whatever she was releasing, the smell, or I don't know what it is, but, it put him into a frenzy. He lost his mind, she was in heat and he wanted what she had. He wanted to, his inner nature, right, was so passionate that he had a lust for mating with her. And Anubis, his passion for that desire was so much that he stopped eating for almost 2 days, like it got to the point where, he would drink water, but he just wouldn't eat. And so initially what I had to do was I had to keep them separated. I would whenever it got to the point where literally I just would not allow him to even go close to her. I would keep it whenever I would take her out of her crate, I would put him in his crate or in his bed, right? And when I would take him out of his bed, I would put her in his bed. And then, even when we went on walks, right, I would have to walk them separately, and, what I noticed is that over time, as I kept them separated, right, he stopped. That whole lust and desire for, to mate, right, went away. I don't know what it was. I just keeping them separated, But, my question is, do you have an uncontrollable desire for something? Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's sex, maybe it's attention. Who knows? Maybe it could be money, Me personally, I've struggled with so many different things, I struggle with just about all of those. Alcohol, sex, attention, money, I've had a lust for women for a long time. I struggled with that desire. I grew up in the church, but, I lost my way when I was, I want to say 16. When I became 16, I did play sports. And I played football, and I'll never forget it. The guys on my football team, they made fun of me, and yeah, man, it was really tough for me. Like when they found out that I was a virgin, I was excited about it. My plan was to stay abstinent, until I got married. To abstain, to stay a virgin until I got married. That was 100% my goal. But like, that peer pressure, I fell to the peer pressure because I was a football player. I loved having the attention, and I didn't like people bothering me, So, I was pretty popular. I had a lot of friends and people knew about me, and I wanted to keep that popularity. I didn't want people thinking I was a square, Fact, 100%. That was a fact, man. That's a fact. I really did not want people thinking that I was some kind of swear, man. And the cost was high. The cost was high because once I got that taste of sexual activity, right? It literally darn near tore me apart. Literally for years. It took me years and years and years to get control of that. Like what made it worse is, the environment that I was growing up, being a young African American man, right? A lot of the time there is in the community, in my environment, right? It was perceived as normal for young men and young women to be having sex, who, even though they were not married, they were not in, committed relationships, right? Like, to just go, it was common for young men to go and be with multiple different women, and it was actually like for the men, it was seen as a good thing. For the women, not necessarily such a good thing, but there's always, society has this double standards. But the point being, I lost my way. I was focused on, I grew up in the church. I used to sing in the church choir. I played basketball on the church basketball team, and I just couldn't control myself. I went from relationship to relationship, and ended up, going with women who I had no commitment with whatsoever. I completely lost myself. It was like a train that was completely derailed. And oh man, it took forever for me to get my life back on track. It honestly, it literally did. Only recently, I'm 34 years old now, and it took me all the way almost until I was in my, I'm gonna say like 27, before, almost 10 years, I was just, running around acting a fool. I had an uncontrollable desire, and it didn't just stop with the sex. It also, with alcohol, it was alcohol, and I started smoking weed and, smoking cigarettes, and, it was the same thing. It was the same thing, uncontrollable desire. It got to the point where we were smoking weed every single day. I had to smoke. Me and my buddies, we would go through packs of cigarettes every single day. And then once I got into, I got into the vaping, the question is, how do you even control these things? How do you control an a lust, when you have a uncontrolled desire for something, almost like a bloodlust, So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go into my first Bible verse, right? Today, we're reading Judges chapter 16, verse 1 through 21. That's the Bible scripture we're reading today. So one day, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were told, Samson is here. So they surrounded the place. And lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night, saying, at dawn, we'll kill him. But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the two posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. He lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength." And he came over, how we can overpower him, so we may tie him up and subdue him. It's getting juicy. It's getting juicy. Those rulers are after him, man. They are after him. So let's get back into it. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I will become as weak as any other man." Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. With men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snapped when it comes close to a flame. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come now, tell me how you can be tied." He said, "If anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "All this time you have been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I will become as weak as any other man." So while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened it with the pin. Again, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep and pulled up the pin and the loom with the fabric. Then she said to him, "How can you say I love you when you don't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head." He said, "Because I have been a Nazirite, dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Wow, that is a mouthful. So Samson's bloodlust or his deep-rooted desire for Delilah led to his destruction. Clearly, it led him getting his eyes poked out and being in prison. He abandoned his faith in God. It said clearly that, God had left him. He said it was part of his faith to not cut his hair. And he gave up his most deep-rooted secret for the love that he had for a woman, right? He loved that woman more than he loved his relationship with God. And that is a problem. We all have to learn to we can't allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by the world and by the things of the world. Our love for things in the world, whether it be your car, whether it be money, whether it be whatever it is, right? We can't allow our love for the worldly pleasures to overwhelm and be more important to us than our relationship with the living God. Well, with that, I'm going to take a break. I'll see you guys in the next. All right. Now we are back again for our second portion of the podcast. So, we were just discussing Samson and Delilah. Samson, he made a crucial mistake, and the honest truth is a lot of men make that mistake. In current day and time, it's nothing different. A lot of young men especially are making the mistake of choosing sex and their desire for women to be more important than who they are becoming, the person that they are becoming. They choose it over their relationships with their family, choose it over their own personal integrity. There a lot of young men use women only for that purpose, and there are a lot of women out there who are the exact same way. That's the society technically it has been this way for generation to generation. We've been making the same mistakes over and over. The sons of the father are passed down to the sins of the father are passed down to the sons, right? So with that, I want to go into, today is a little bit different. I'm doing a second Bible verse. So let's go ahead into this second Bible verse, In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." So David sent this word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, "Haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home?" Uriah said to David, The ark and the Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing." Then David said to him, "Stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, "Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him, so he will be struck down and die." So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, "When you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, 'Why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot arrows from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerub-Besheth? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died in Thebez? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asks you this, then say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, "The men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab." When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. Wow. There are a lot of people who like to talk about David, and King David, right? They only talk about, majority of the people only focus I've heard a lot of pastors speak on David, but they only talk about David and Goliath. They talk about how David got chosen from among his brothers, his many brothers, how he was, how he had killed a bear and killed a lion, and, how he survived, the king that was before him who hated him, and so forth and so on, right? But not many people talk about this David, and for me personally, this is very difficult for me to accept. For a long time, I struggled with this story because, David, this was just terrible, but the lust, again, like I said before, the bloodlust, right? He had a lust for this woman, a deep-rooted desire for this woman, Bathsheba. And, a lot of us, we struggle in these areas, There are no perfect humans, right? We all make mistakes, surely. But, to look a little bit deeper into the story, later on in this story, David, pretty much one of the servants of God comes to David, right? Tells him a story about a man who did something really bad to some other man's sheep, and then pretty much he relates the story to David. He says, "You are the one who, the guy. There's some guy who killed a man's sheep," and David said, "Oh, in the next chapter, David says, oh, that man is that something really bad should happen to that man." And the servant said to him, he said, "Well, you are that sheep, or you are the man who did that, who killed that sheep, the man's sheep." And the sheep was was Uriah in the story, right? The sheep was Uriah. And, it was pretty much saying that the sheep was Uriah's, Uriah the Hittite, right? It was he was one of God's good servants, and David slaughtered him. David sent him to the slaughter, right? So initially what ends up happening is David is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is a terrible thing I have done." And, the worst part, this is just a terrible, terrible thing. This is god awful. Straight up, man. This guy done slept with some man's wife, right? That alone is just wow. Wow. There's, ooh, man, this was really difficult for me to accept, So, oh, man, I have no respect for people that do those type of things, right? I understand. I'm not a perfect man. I've made many mistakes in my life, and it's just this, there has to be a line, where we say we will not go past this. And, the crazy part was, it wasn't like that woman could even deny him, right? Because he was the king. He was the king. There was literally nothing. She had no power. She was one of his subjects. She did not have the right to tell him no. And even if she was a woman of God, right? And during this time, she, as the king, David could have had her killed, So, he had Uriah killed, right? Her husband. He was a good man, and he was on the same side of him. He was fighting for David, So, yeah, this was just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. We have to learn to be able, young men, young women, we have to control our desires. That's the line. That's what I'm trying to get in this story, right? And in both of these stories, right, terrible things have happened, right? And just to go back to the David story before I get off of this, right? David's family ended up having a curse put on them. Real talk, straight up. His children. So that first child that he got, when Bathsheba was pregnant, right? They lost that child. David cried for many days, and before the child, he begged God, "Oh, please don't take the kid," but the baby died. Straight up, the baby died. They lost that child because of because David went against what God wanted. He went against what God wanted. So, they ended up losing that child. Real talk, man. Baby died. And it didn't just stop there, right? He brought a curse onto his family, right? Because of what he did, the sword never left his family. His sons, crazy things happened in David's family because of his desire to be with that woman who he clearly did not have the right to be with. He should have left her alone. straight up. But yeah, we can learn from these stories. You got two strong stories here of men and women making bad decisions, because it wasn't just the men. The women, Delilah, initially, to go back to the story with Samson and Delilah, right? Samson ended up destroying, his hair grew back, he got his strength back, and they had some huge festival or something like that in stadium or whatever, and he ends up pushing down the main beam and killing everybody. And everybody in the festival or in the stadium or whatever dies, from the, he pushes down the main beam in the building and everybody in there dies, evil. We cannot do bad things and expect good results. That is the clear message that I have for you. We have to control our deep-rooted desires, whether it be for smoking and drinking long term. If you smoke cigarettes for a long period of time, so many people end up getting cancer, right? E-cigarettes, it's the same thing, right? It's still nicotine. The nicotine is what causes the cancer. It's the nicotine, right? So there's no way around it. It's deeply addictive. It costs a lot of money. Long term, if you smoke cigarettes or you do vaping for a long enough time period, right, you can develop cancer in your lungs. You can develop cancer. You can get throat cancer, and they'll have to cut a hole in your throat, and I mean, you could get cancer in your genitals. You could get cancer in any part of your body, right? You don't want that. A lot of people, I understand life is stressful. We need to find other ways to deal with that stress. Go to the gym, go talk to a therapist, but don't make bad decisions. Don't make bad short-term decisions and suffer long-term consequences. You hear what I'm saying? Listen to that again. Don't make bad short-term decisions like, I just got to have it right now. Beautiful girl, looks good, right? And you're out this is why I don't go to the nightclubs. This is why I don't drink alcohol. This is why I don't do any drugs, because I don't want anything controlling my decisions. I don't want to, be subject to making bad decisions because I'm under the influence of alcohol, let's get back to that deep-rooted desire, right? Alcohol over time, it can become an addiction. There are a lot of people who are addicted to drinking alcohol, right? They even have communities for it, Alcoholics Anonymous, right? What happened? People lost their way, right? It started off as when they were young, it started off as something fun to do, and then over time, it became a way for them to deal with their problems, right? And that's when it becomes a real problem. A lot of people hear a lot of the time about people being angry drunks, angry alcoholics, right? We got to make better decisions for our lives. Hey people, we only have one life. We have one opportunity to get this right. I'm telling you today, right now, you're hearing it firsthand, right? You have an opportunity to change your life, right? You can live whatever quality of life that you want. If you right now today are making bad decisions, if you've continuously made bad decisions, if you allowed your own personal deep-rooted desires, your bloodlust, right, for something, whatever it may be, maybe it's for, I don't know what your lust is. You know it in your heart. You know what it is. And I'm telling you today, right, it's time to acknowledge that you have a problem, right? And start taking steps on how you can fix that problem. Maybe you just need to avoid being around certain individuals. Because for me, when I was younger, right, the reason why it was easy for me to continue smoking and drinking is because I only spent time around people who I could smoke and drink with. When the first thing I had to do was separate myself from all of those people, right? That's how I straight up, I just stopped hanging out with anybody who drank or smoked. what I did, I focused on my work, right? I had I really did enjoy work, right? And don't get it twisted. There are people who have lust in work. Anything can be a deep-rooted desire. There are some people who just have to work, right? What I'm saying is take everything with a grain of salt. Don't overdo it is what I'm saying, So yeah, I hope you guys can go forth and make some changes in your lives. Whoever is listening to this, right? If you have a desire to change your life, do it. Do it. I am telling you now, you're listening to me telling you, I believe in you. I believe that you can do it. You have the ability to live whatever quality of life that you're looking to live. If you don't want to be a slave, right, to something, a slave to your inner desires, a slave to drinking, a slave to smoking, a slave to sex, right? You don't want to be a slave to this thing. Maybe you're addicted to gambling, right? Whatever it may be, right? It's time for you to take change. If your addiction is causing you to have problems with your family, the people that you love, you can't even spend time, you can't talk to the people you love, right? And it's hurting the people around you and it's hurting your life, right? I'm telling you, you can make a change. You listen to this message right now. Do whatever is necessary to get the help that you need. Don't be like David. Don't be like Samson, right? Don't wait till it's too late, right? And you give in to something that clearly you, in your mind, right, you think, oh, this is fine. A lot of people think it's fine to go out drinking every weekend with their friends, right? That's how it starts, right? So a lot of people think it's fine to go to nightclubs and having sex with random women until you get those women pregnant or get somebody pregnant that you don't want to be pregnant, and you end up with children, a whole bunch of children by different women, right? And you end up having child support payments. That's a full ordeal. For real. You go to work and you don't get nothing out of it. You know what I mean? They're taking half your paycheck, right? And you figure you living a life, just trying to figure out how you gonna survive. Because you got to pay for all these different kids. You literally have no control over your own life. We got to start thinking about the consequences, people. Straight up, young people, you got to think about the consequences. If you start a life if you got a lust for stealing, right? You got to change that. You got to change that. You got to change your lust. We got to work on ourselves continuously. We got to do whatever is necessary. You got to read books, right? About addiction, figure out what steps you can take to help get away from whatever those addictions may be. Right? We got to take control over our deep-rooted desires, our bloodlust. You can change. It's possible. Do it now. Don't wait. Anyway, with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for listening to Motivation with Darius. Please go check out our website at www.gorillanaturinc.com. That's GORILLANATUREINC.com, gorillanaturinc.com. And don't forget to add us on social media too. Go check us out on Instagram at Gorilla Nature Inc. Go check it out, please. Follow us, like our comments, check out our YouTube at Gorilla Nature Inc. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this podcast. God bless. Catch you guys next time. Have a great week.